Good morning. My name is Jenn Frandsen. I am a registered practical nurse, and I'm also proud to serve on the executive board of SEIU Healthcare to represent the region that includes Parry Sound, Muskoka. Our union represents the voices of 60,000 healthcare workers across Ontario. These past several years have been challenging for families, and they have been especially hard for healthcare workers and the people who rely on the healthcare system. Before I turn to why I'm here this morning as part of this local campaign, I'd like to take a moment to talk about Mike Schreiner. Mike is the kind of leader who listens to healthcare workers. As we were going through hard times, Mike took the time to ask us what was going on with workers and their patients. When well-connected lobbyists were influencing government policy down in Toronto, Mike took the time to talk with healthcare workers about what change was necessary to fix healthcare for the better. And Mike didn't just listen to healthcare workers, Mike heard us. The Green Party of Ontario has a plan that is good for nurses and PSWs. The healthcare plan that Mike and his team put together would mean that patients could get the care they need when and where they need it. On the other hand, let's contrast that approach to the all talk, no action style of Doug Ford, who likes to say he's for the people, but has ignored the cries of us people serving in healthcare. Healthcare workers told Doug Ford about the big nursing home chains that refused to provide workers with PPE. What did Doug Ford do? Doug Ford took the side of the for-profit nursing home industry and shielded them from lawsuits, even as healthcare workers were without PPE and as seniors died in isolation. Healthcare workers told Doug Ford that surgical wait times would get worse if he didn't address the health human resource crisis in our hospitals. What did Doug Ford do? He attacked our jobs, and now nursing vacancies are at a record highs because nurses aren't willing to be exposed to the risks of working in a Doug Ford-led healthcare system. Healthcare workers told Doug Ford that home care services for seniors in rural areas were being neglected. I bet rural families can tell you Doug Ford has failed seniors who need home care services. Simply put, Ontario patients deserve better than Doug Ford's conservatives who abandon people like me on the front line of care. With Matt Richter, the people of Parry Sound, Muskoka, can have a champion for healthcare workers and their patients. Parry Sound, Muskoka voters have a chance to send a strong voice to Queen's Park who will speak up when the community is being ignored by Doug Ford down in Toronto. Today, SEIU Healthcare is proud to officially endorse Matt Richter for Parry Sound, Muskoka, and Mike Schreiner in Guelph. We're encouraging all voters to vote for healthcare and send Matt to Queen's Park to work with Mike, who has been a champion for our families, and together they can be champions for yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike Schreiner.
Thank you, Jen, for those incredibly kind words. And thank you so much to you and all the nurses, PSWs, and frontline healthcare workers for your service to our communities, our families, your patients, and just the outstanding care that you've provided for our loved ones, especially through the challenging last 2 years. From the bottom of my heart, I want to thank SEIU for your support and your acknowledgement of the hard work that we've put into standing up for nurses, PSWs, and frontline healthcare workers. I'm speaking to you from my home in Guelph on the Treaty 3 lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. And I want to express the Ontario Greens' commitment to the truth and reconciliation process. Ontario Greens are fully committed to standing up for healthcare workers, repealing the Wage Restraint Bill 124, and improving working conditions for frontline healthcare workers, because we know that will improve the care for our neighbors, our loved ones, the people in our communities. Frontline healthcare workers deserve better. Healthcare workers are the backbone of Ontario's healthcare system and have been the backbone of our pandemic response. They're the heart and soul of our systems of care. Yet, Doug Ford continues to freeze their wages and benefits and disregard calls from frontline healthcare workers for the respect, dignity, wages, benefits, and supports that healthcare heroes deserve. It's just astounding that during a public health crisis, the Ford government couldn't even treat healthcare workers with the respect they deserve, providing them with the PPE they need, the wages they deserve, the benefits. You know, healthcare workers' benefits have been frozen, including their benefits that would provide things like better access to mental health care after going through so much trauma in long-term care and in our hospitals and throughout our healthcare system over the last 2 years. The Ontario Greens are committed to building a more caring Ontario. Well, healthcare workers are treated with respect. If we want to build a more caring society, it starts with supporting the workers who care for all of us. And so my commitment to all of you is that I will continue to work hard at Queen's Park to be a strong voice for frontline healthcare workers in the legislature. And I'm excited to say that the Ontario Greens have huge momentum in Parry Sound, Muskoka, because of the hard work and persistence of Matt Richter, our candidate for Parry Sound, Muskoka, and the next MPP for Parry Sound, Muskoka. Matt, I'm so proud of the work you're doing, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Mike, and Jen, thank you, and to everyone in SEIU. I am so proud and honored to receive this endorsement. You know, your trust in myself as being a strong advocate down at Queen's Park naturally is extremely appreciated. I want all of you to know, and that at this moment and going forward, that your trust is acknowledged to come with an opportunity, but a responsibility for myself that I take very seriously. And that is to continue after June 2nd, to be that vocal advocate at Queen's Park and throughout our riding and all of Ontario, as we are a connected riding here with so many people who visit our area or have second residences as well. But to be that strong advocate for fairness, for the funding and the benefits that are so rightly deserved among the personal support workers, the nurses, and all healthcare workers. The emotional stories that have been shared during this campaign and past campaigns and in between election cycles have not been forgotten. And I will remember those and use those lived experiences to really share the compelling reasons why we must continue moving forward. Those stories connect and relate to people, and that's how we develop a more caring society to ensure that we don't go back into the past ways, that we move forward, and we are a shining example of how healthcare is meant to be done. So on behalf of myself, but our riding of Parry Sound, Muskoka, it is with a great honor that I accept this endorsement. And again, I recognize how much work needs to be done, and I'm excited to work together hand in hand to make sure that we have that healthcare system that we so rightly expect and deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt, Mike, and Jen. We'll now open the floor to any media questions. Can you please note if you're directing it towards your question towards Mike or Matt? And if you have a question, please use the raise hand function and I will call on you. Looks like first up we have Richard Southern from City News. Richard, please unmute yourself and go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, gentlemen. Thanks for taking my call. Perhaps you could both weigh in on this if you don't mind. Every party now has a fairly extensive environmental policy. Do you worry the Green Party is getting squeezed out on your big issue? And, you know, for those maybe who haven't been paying close attention, what sets the Green Party aside from the other parties on that all-important environmental platform?
No, not at all, Richard. I mean, if you go back even to the leaders debate just a week ago, I was pretty much the only leader who talked about the urgent need to address the climate emergency during the leaders' debate until people were directly asked by one of the moderators. The Ontario Greens have the most ambitious climate action plan and the most ambitious plan to ensure that our communities are climate ready. We have a plan that shows how we can crush climate pollution in half by 2030, be fully net zero by 2045, and do it in a way that addresses people's cost of living concerns by electrifying our transportation systems to make life more affordable for people, and by retrofitting our homes to help people save money by saving energy and creating tens of thousands of good green jobs. We also have a plan about protecting the nature that protects us, protecting the farmland that feeds us, the wetlands that protect us from flooding and that clean our drinking water. And we're the only party that's put forward a $2 billion a year fund to help municipalities ensure that our infrastructure is climate ready. I mean, sadly, this storm that hit Ontario last weekend, and by the way, folks up in northwestern Ontario are also dealing with flooding right now as well. They highlight these types of climate fueled weather events, highlight how critically important it is to ensure that our infrastructure is climate ready. And the Ontario Greens are the only party that's put a substantial amount of money on the table so that municipalities and our public infrastructure is climate ready. And so I would argue that we need green voices at Queen's Park now more than ever to meet this moment in time where we can set our economy up for success in the new climate economy and ensure that we protect people and the places we love in this province by ensuring that we're climate ready.
Matt?
I also would like to add about the Green Party's commitment to connecting the climate crisis and protecting our environment within healthcare, and how we are talking about the environment and climate in an ambitious and responsible way forward, that other parties are actually adopting some of our policies as we recognize that the mental health crisis that is being that continues to build and expand because of climate related issues here in our riding and across Ontario. When people are concerned about where their paycheck is coming and the reason that their business is going down and going the opposite way that they want to see because of climate related issues, whether that be our ski resort operators, even our golf courses, our different trail system networks that can't open at different times. We see this as a tourism related issue, but our farmers, even local food producers are seeing their very way of living and finding their income with their family business from one generation to the next. It's being recognized as a very vulnerable situation because of the climate. And when they see that the Green Party recognizes that, and then we're putting forward an ambitious plan to have OHIP cover mental health services, that is the kind of responsible action that they really appreciate, and they recognize that it needs cross-party support. And we were thrilled to see the other parties, well, not all the other parties, but definitely to see two of the other parties recognize that mental health needs to be covered under OHIP because it's a healthcare issue, but it's also an environmental climate crisis issue as well.
Thank you, Matt. Mike, I think most would agree you've run a strong campaign. Why do you think it is that Ontarians are not embracing the Greens even more than they already are now? What's stopping you from picking up more than just one new MPP, should that happen?
Well, we're seeing tremendous momentum and growth in the Ontario Greens. And so I'm just excited about the opportunities we have in this election to increase our seat count at Queen's Park. We know that being a new party and being the fourth party means we have to work harder than everyone else. It means that we rely on people power to fuel our campaigns. And we've seen in other provinces, I particularly look at PEI and New Brunswick and British Columbia, that you elect that first green, and then you elect that second green, and then things open up. And in the case of PEI, now the official opposition, in British Columbia, 3 green MLAs held the balance of power in a minority government. So that we know we have to take the steps to grow our party over time. I'm a longtime small business owner. That's how you build a business. And in the same way, we're building a political movement, and we're just excited, particularly coming out of our strong debate performance last week, the momentum that the party has, and especially in Parry Sound, Muskoka right now.
Thanks, Mike. Just one last one for me. I do have to ask, there could be 2 party leader opening spots in the next couple of weeks. Will you categorically rule out right now running for the leadership of the NDP or the Liberals?
I'm the leader of the Ontario Green Party, Richard. And I think, so many people have commented on the honesty and authenticity I brought to the leaders debate. And I think that's what Greens bring to politics. And I'm just honored to be the leader of, a party that has momentum, a party that's offering new solutions to old problems, and a party that is securing the endorsement of SEIU healthcare workers today, because not only are we speaking out on the climate emergency, but we're also speaking out on the need to invest in the people who deliver healthcare in this province.
Can I ask Matt real quick too? Matt, what are you hearing when you're knocking on the doors? Like, why do you think it is that you're in a position to perhaps win this riding? What are people telling you?
People are sharing from the beginning of this election till now that they are so encouraged by a positive change, a positive way of doing politics that we've been advocating for from one election to the next with support in the past. And this time through, to see that come to be, it's like so many variables are there, but the message of honesty and integrity at the core of all the solutions we put forward. I can only say that on behalf of our riding, people have really embraced that, and they recognize that's the only way to go forward. Perhaps from the 2 years of being through a pandemic, it afforded an opportunity to kind of, everybody had a time to pause and reflect on the future we all want and how we're going to get that future. And I think our riding's ready to step up, along with other ridings, obviously Guelph and across Ontario, that the Green Party message of working across party lines and putting people ahead of party is the only way to proceed. And we're ready to go.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Richard. Next up, we have John Michael McGrath from TVO. John, please unmute yourself and go ahead.
Good morning. I wonder if I can ask somebody from SEIU about the decision to endorse 2 Green members or aspiring members. The union has a historic relationship with the Liberals and the New Democrats as well. What drove the decision in this case to endorse Matt Richter and Mike Schreiner in particular?
Jenn, are you okay to take this?
Yep.
Thank you.
Our executive board made the decision to support the Green Party in Simcoe, Muskoka, and Guelph, and it was a unanimous decision.
Could I ask, is there any concern on your part that endorsing Greens in these contests might disrupt your relationship with other political parties at the legislature?
I'm not aware of any disruption that it would cause. The Green Party does have some great examples and a plan, good plan for healthcare workers. So we do endorse Mike and Matt for a better healthcare system in Ontario.
Okay, thank you for that. Mike, one of the topics in this election that has not gotten a ton of discussion is the electricity system. We've had this big storm in central and eastern Ontario, and this now seems like a decent time to talk about the resilience, the sustainability of the electricity system in Ontario. what do you think needs to be done in terms of either making the system more sustainable or more resilient to these kinds of climate-related damages?
Yeah, John Michael, we absolutely have to make the investment in making our infrastructure more resilient, and not only our electricity infrastructure, but our transportation and buildings as well. As you probably know, I asked the Financial Accountability Officer to do an analysis of the climate risk to public infrastructure in Ontario, and they were able to finish their work when it comes to buildings, and I know they're working on transportation and electricity infrastructure as well. So buildings alone, they determined just this decade is a $6 billion risk to the province, and that can grow to $60 billion over the next 2 decades if we don't make the investments we need to make our infrastructure more resilient and climate ready. That's exactly why the Ontario Greens have proposed a $2 billion fund that would be, the funding would come through levies on commercial parking facilities, to be able to make the investments we need to ensure that our public buildings, our transportation infrastructure, our electricity infrastructure is climate ready to help us better withstand the impacts of the climate disruptions that are already baked into the system. And I just want to say it's also critically important that we do everything we can to crush climate pollution, because we want to reduce the severity and frequency of these extreme weather events. So we know there's already some climate change baked in due to past levels of pollution, and we have to make the investments and adaptation for that. But we still have a huge opportunity to reduce risk. And the Ontario Greens have the most detailed sector by sector, year by year practical plan to show how we can reduce climate pollution while helping people address affordability concerns and setting our economy up for success.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Any other questions? Please use the raise hand function and I will call on you. That's looking like everything for now. So Mike, I can send it back to you.
Yeah, I just really want to offer a heartfelt thank you to Jenn and all the frontline healthcare workers and everyone at SEIU for just the tremendous service you've provided the people of this province through the biggest public health challenge of our lifetimes. And I just want you to know that you deserve respect. You deserve fair wages. You deserve fair benefits and full-time work. You deserve to have a healthcare system that's properly staffed, so you're not overworked in short shifts. That's what the Ontario Greens are going to continue to push for and advocate for and campaign for. And when we go to Queen's Park as a caucus of Greens in the next Parliament, we're going to be with you shoulder to shoulder. We're going to have your back, and we're going to honor the way in which you've honored us today by endorsing Matt and me in Parry Sound, Muskoka, and in Guelph. And we're going to return that to fight for a better healthcare system for our loved ones, our neighbors, and our communities in places all across this province. We have to fix the foundation of our systems of care. And when it comes to healthcare and long-term care, that starts by investing in the people who deliver that care. So I want to thank you all for joining us today. And I want to wish everyone all the best, especially in this last week of the election campaign.
Thank you, everyone.